This is the Mgtow Cowboy. I cite fair use. I cite fair use policies.
I have, and let me know.
Sounds like great science there.
Come back and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
All right. What's your impression of this organization called, is it Mgtow?
Men Going Their Own Way, or Mgtow, yeah.
Yeah, Mgtow. These men, from what I've been told, because I've been trying to get them on the show, but they won't come on. I'm surprised by that. Since I run a men's organization, I was surprised when my producer, she contacted them and they cursed her out. It was like, I'm never coming to you, leave me alone, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean...
Are you surprised by that?
In the actual definition of their movement, you have the answer there. It's men going their own way. They're basically saying screw everyone, and they're jumping ship.
What do you think of that?
So what Mgtow is it is the response to what feminism has become. And
right.
Feminism was very, very good for a long time, and women's equality is a necessary component in our functional society. It has since moved on to something that is more about the hatred of men. And women have been, now that women have equality, women are kind of consistently manipulating men and sort of cutting them at the knees.
Oh, yeah.
So men aren't allowed to be men anymore, and women are the women's manipulation is that men will almost put up with anything in order to get a girl, right? If a man's desire to procreate, to have sex with a woman, it'll basically reroute his brain to where he'll put up with her being a garbage human. He'll put up with her, I mean, it doesn't matter. He'll put up with massive amounts of abuse. He'll put up with anything. He'll put up with, I have to work for my entire life like a slave and do everything that you want and so that I can get a little bit of sex from you maybe once a month, and then start a family with you and have this whole thing riding on his shoulders so that he can, basically have sex with her for a few years until she feels secure enough, or until the marriage, has passed that mark where now she would get 50% of his assets, and then she stops having sex with him. So men have basically been corralled into this almost enslavement. A lot of men feel that way. Don't get me wrong, that's one very narrow point.
Right.
Because the reality of dating is that it's very broad, and that there are great relationships with great people, and they're not doing that to each other.
Right.
But for the people that's happened to, and there are a lot of them, they created Mgtow's response to that.
And so what's wrong with those men that they overreacted in such a manner? What caused them to be so weak and subject to women that women can do that to them?
It's a very negative place to be a man. Masculinity is something that's constantly analyzed and scrutinized and criticized and put down, and
But why don't men fight back though? A real man will fight back. Just because someone accused you of something,
well,
you don't have to give in to that. You stand up and fight back.
So Mgtow and men's rights actually do. They stand up and they fight against that. And what
but
women
not if
do,
they're running away saying we're never gonna have a family.
Mgtow is like peace out, right? But before Mgtow, you had MRA, which was the men's rights activists or men's rights movement. And when they stood up and they fought back, women created, women feminists, not all women obviously, most women don't even want
men anyway. They hate men.
So, some women do, but most women don't.
The feminists do.
That's
why they're feminists.
So they stood up, and what the feminists did is they created propaganda structures and moral narratives to basically label and demonize these men. So if a man stood up to fight back or simply to stand up for himself, they would immediately say, you're a misogynist, right? So they'll label you immediately. You're a misogynist, you're a sexist, and you're trying to keep women down. And he's going, no, I just want my rights too.
Yeah.
And they're going, well, men have subjected women to all of this stuff, and then they bring up the past. And, what argument would be complete without a woman bringing up the past, right? Some stuff that you did, or maybe she never experienced.
50 years ago, she still remembers.
She still remembers. So... what we're seeing here is basically a knockdown, drag-out fight between men and women. It's almost it almost models a fight between a man and a woman.
Yeah, sure does.
Just like a marriage.
Yeah.
And you're seeing lulls in that where the man goes, okay, honey, you're right, just do whatever, it doesn't matter. And he's totally in the right. But he's cowering to her because he doesn't want to deal with it, and she's being, completely emotional. And then she comes back a few weeks later, and was like, I'm sorry, I was being crazy. And he's like, oh, it's okay, honey. And then, that process kind of constantly repeats. And then they're fighting over the kids. Well, we should raise them like this. Well, maybe we shouldn't raise them like that, okay? Maybe we should do it a different way. Maybe you should be less domineering. And he's like, maybe you should stop being so, know. So it's just funny that, like, all of this is even happening, right? It's almost like the inevitable conclusion of this.
But to me, it's a perfect condition for weak men to become real men. Because you know how in those tough moments when life just seemed tough, it's happening to you so that you can check out your weakness and take advantage of that moment and overcome.
I disagree. I think it's
not
harder.
a bad thing. What?
I think it's harder now for men to become real men.
No, it's
than
not.
It ever was in history.
Look at the Great White Hope.
What was that?
You know who the Great White Hope is, right?
The Great White. Do I know who that is? Like Larry Bird?
President Trump.
Oh.
Look at how those women go after him, and they went after him during the primary. He just became stronger and stronger and stronger, and he just knocked them out like bowling balls.
Yeah, but I mean,
he didn't cower down and say, I'm just gonna not have anything to do with women. I'm gonna go Mgtow. He became stronger from it.
So let's.
And now the Wicked Witch of the West, Maxine Waters, is about to jump off the cliff. Pocahontas is losing her mind. The women who hate men are having that's the case.
I do agree that some people are standing up right now, but I don't think that it's easier now to be a man than it was in, say, the 40s or that it was to be in the 1900s. I mean, don't get me wrong, like life is relative, so life is easier now for people, but men were basically socialized into being a male from the time they were children. They didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
And they were constantly pushed out there into the world, and they were tested against things. Men were socialized into men. I mean, by the time they were 15, 16 years old, they were grown men. They were, they were socialized. So I think that system was technically a ton easier than giving men all the choices that they have to make today. The idea that a girl can stand up and say, you know what, that person hit on me and they did it the wrong way and I just didn't like it and it was really uncomfortable for me. The fact that a woman can say that and it's taken so seriously that it destroys that person's life is absolutely unacceptable in society.
Have you ever been controlled by a woman like that? You've been so into her that she had control over you in that manner?
Yeah, I've been in both kinds of relationships. I've been in where I was the dominant party, and I've been in relationships where she was the dominant party.
And what happened to you that you allowed yourself to get into that relationship with a woman?
Well, just because a woman
that?
Is in a more dominant position doesn't necessarily make the relationship negative, right?
I wouldn't.
Hello, everyone. This is the Mgtow Cowboy. Again, I cite what is it called? I cite fair use. I cite fair use in being able to post this, and this is for This is for educational purposes only. Again, I cite fair use in posting this, and this is for educational purposes only.